We so enjoyed talking to Jade of Lovely Jubbly Fabrics about fussy cutting in our 4th episode of ByAnnie Patchport. We ran out of time to cover it all, but here's the full version if you'd like to catch the rest of the story. Hi, we're back with Jade, who is the absolute queen of fussy cutting. I've asked her to share a few tips with us, so I'm just going to turn it over to you. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I don't know about queen, but I do love to fussy cut. I want to talk a little bit about how I like to add fun to my projects with fussy cutting. Part of the fun of sewing a bag is telling a story with your fabric choices. Fussy cutting allows you to take that storytelling to a whole new level. Annie's let me play with her Tula pink grey work fabric this week, which I've been desperate to get my hands on, and is one of the sales points of coming to play with brand new Tula. No, it's definitely to see you mainly. And I've used the opportunity to stretch my fussy cutting muscles a little bit this week. I think the main prints in this collection are perfect for fussy cuts. And so I've been making drop zones. I intended to make 3, a full set, because you were like, you should make a full set. Well, I cut 3, I did production line on them, and invariably we chatted so much that I, by accident, miscut my large. I misread the instructions because I have a bit of a number issue. And so these came out great. My large is a bit of an oopsie, so we're going to come back, but it also does show, I can show my fussy cutting on there. I fussy cut the inside because I actually really think that this is the only Annie bag that I can think of that really you're not as focused on the outside. So what I've done is fussy cut the centers of these, and I want to kind of demonstrate and explain how we might go about fussy cutting those. This one, the polar bear, which I can't remember what the name of it is in the collection, but the polar bear design particularly would work both ways. It's a very square fussy cut. Yes. This one you can do in either direction, so it really depends on your preference. But for me, the logic of a drop zone is it is portrait oriented or vertically oriented, if you would prefer me to say it that way. This fabric, particularly this range, is perfect for the insides of drop zones. So let's talk a little bit more about the technique of fussy cutting.
Sounds good.
The wolf or any of Tula's cameos, anything where you have a signature design. The first thing you want to look at, and this is almost a medium drop zone. This is just a scrap of fabric, so it's just for demonstrational purposes. But this, the drop zone dimensions, when you're working with your fabric, which most people will be, maybe they're sitting on treasure, a serious out of print cameo that they don't want to be cutting into. It definitely hasn't been pre-quilted yet. Yep. If you've bought lots of cameos, the best way to do would be to pre-quilt like a yard, but you maybe only have just the tiny piece left. So we're going to work as if we're planning the drop zone before it's been quilted. So you've got a couple of options. When I worked with this one, all of the math of it and the way you work it out is the same, but you have to be super conscious of your 2 dimensions.
Yes, which way it goes.
Your unquilted dimensions are always bigger because you want to be quilting and then trimming it down to the right size.
Right.
And so for this example, we're using an unquilted piece of fabric. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm drawing a kind of rough wolf on my note paper and just writing the dimensions of the wolf on there. So we're taking a ruler and just figuring out what it actually measures. So it's a 4-inch pretty much. Now, obviously, I actually use a design point within it. So the center of the wolf's nose to me really is the center of the print. If you remember the lions from Everglade, they're off center because they're like facing one way. So I also think you look at it visually, and I sometimes will even frame it and go, is that the center? Would I use that center? Should I off center it? So sort of a similar technique that I do on this bag that I'll show you in a second. But with this one, we'll just say it's approximately 4 inches. It's very much, I would say sort of
pick
from the fluffy bit of his, pick a number that's easy to divide in half. Yeah. Very key. Yeah. So with this one, we're saying that the 2 inch is the center line of that. Okay. So what you're doing is you're then looking at the width of your piece of your unquilted fabric, the dimensions that you're being asked to cut to prepare your drop zone. Mm-hmm. You're splitting that dimension in half, and then you're measuring from this point here out.
the edge,
Exactly. So you're always doing that center and making sure you line it up. So that 2 inches is kind of only important if you're trying to do maths. For example, if it's not a drop zone and you're trying to cut
pocket or something.
a pocket and piece it in exactly the right way, you need to know where it's going to sit, will it fit, all of those different things as well.
Right.
But for this drop zone, it's just more about knowing where the center is. You're splitting your dimension, you're going from one side, but then what I'll do is take a bigger ruler. Once I've cut the one side, I then just cut the whole width. Yeah. I'm not going to, and double check before I cut.
Right.
And if it's wrong, make a smaller project.
Yes.
That's it.
Always
You
a
just
great
hit the
solution.
incredible shrinking piece of fabric. If it goes a bit wrong, make it smaller. You have a little bit of leeway, so you can probably get away with it if it's if it's a 1/4 inch out.
Right.
You can probably quilt it and still get your piece
shrink
out.
that much.
Exactly.
Usually.
So with this one, we've got your center point and the same thing you're going to do in your height. So you're just kind of being conscious about it, and it's exactly the same technique in the opposite direction as well.
Got it.
And then when you've quilted that piece, so you'll pair it up with your soft and stable and your lining fabric. Once it's quilted, you then have to do the same technique to recenter and cut, and that's where it.
Yeah, don't just trim.
Don't
from
follow
one
your
side.
original numbers or trim it down. Just kind of place it. And the more care you take with it, the more satisfying the result is. That's really all I do it for. It's the dopamine hit
That you
when
get.
I go, look at that, that's in the perfect position. Ow! That's how we feel about this one. We have been howling this week, haven't we?
Yes.
So that's essentially what I would do to fussy cut the center of a drop zone. I did bring another one that I finished.
I love the fabric.
Well,
on
I
the
finished.
outside of that
It's a
one.
year-old finish. I have been doing that with Annie this week. I've been finishing projects. I brought some easy wins so that if we were kind of overwhelmed working on the new pattern and doing other stuff, I had some little satisfying.
I don't think you realized how much I had for you to do while you were here.
I was thrilled to have stuff to do. But there is also, it doesn't have to be a huge signature print when you're choosing a fussy cut. I actually fussy cut this little tiny mouse from Chula's Tabby Road collection, and that one is
Such
also
a fun
great.
little
It's
surprise.
it's always just the surprise on the inside. That's what I think is. This pattern just captures me so much. So drop zone you can do anything with. You can mix around your fabrics. But one thing that I did want to cover really briefly is the technique for finishing a drop zone, which has nothing to do with fussy cutting whatsoever.
But it is fabulous.
But has made the drop zone probably now my number one ever because it's joyous. So Randy Jones's Bag Makers Group, ByAnnie Bag Makers Group on Facebook has loads of hints and tips and all sorts of different things on it. And I was explaining to Annie yesterday that I did not want to finish my drop zones.
She's had this for a whole year to carry her hand sewing supplies. And she had never sewn in the ends of the panels because she doesn't like to hand sew.
The irony is not dead on me. Dead on me. The irony is not lost on me that it carries my hand sewing supplies. It works without doing it. And I
had to say I didn't disagree because hand sewing is not my favorite thing to do either. But I couldn't figure out when we wrote this pattern a better way to do it because every way we tried to do it, we ended up with extra lines of stitching out here that didn't look good.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned to her that there was someone in the Bag Makers group who had posted a video, which we brought up.
Yes.
And we both say, Sammy Messick, you're our hero.
So yes, it's Sammy Messick. She posted a post about it in the Facebook group and then added a video, which was really helpful. The technique is completely and utterly genius. We bow down to you, Sammy. I did it 12 times. I finished all 3 of these drop zones in one go. And I mean, look, it's fully joined. It's epic.
And basically what she does, we'll just give a little sneak peek, but she shows it in process. She just folds this over so that you see that, and then she turns it this way.
And it's folded on the fold line that you've sewn in. There is a sewn fold line.
There's a fold line right there. And she lets the side panel hang out a little bit, and then she just sews right close along here. But because of the depth of soft and stable and the way it works, it does not show on the outside.
So yeah, this is sewn on the inside, and there is absolutely no
extra
pleating,
line of stitching
no extra
beyond
line
the
of
fold
stitching.
you've already stitched.
It's almost like only sewing one half of the fabric, which is so unusual with anything that you would construct. But it catches them perfectly. It finishes the structure. Like, this is, I'll speak for you. It's an Annie endorsed technique, right?
It is. It is. It's
We're
an
into
Annie,
it.
or it's a hack that someone did that I say, yes.
Do it.
Perfect. Do it. So go to ByAnnie Bag Makers group on Facebook. If you're not already a member, you have to answer a couple questions, and then you're approved to join. And then search for Sammie, Sammie, Messick, Messick, and put Drop Zone in there too, and it'll come up. And then you just have to look in the comments to see the video.
Genius.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's kind of the end of the things that I wanted to talk about with Drop Zone. I'm kind of trying to cover fussy cutting in different ways. So this is very much the kind of fussy cutting that I will always focus on. I'm interested in fussy cutting a pocket. I'm interested in fussy cutting the lining of a Drop Zone. Anything where you get a little, even a tiny little clam up, which I've shown before.
That little raccoon is so fun on
there. Yeah, he's super cute. And this is another great way to demonstrate the technique. These are directional fabrics. So you're always making, and Annie includes this in any pattern where it's applicable. This is, or most of the patterns where it's definitely a clam up, and anything where direction is very important. I always will choose directional fabrics. Tula makes a lot of directional fabrics. And in case you're wondering, quite enjoy Tula fabric. And so you're just piecing the fabric before you start quilting. So it is a very simple technique, but kind of tricky. You have to figure out, you have to allow for the fact you're going to be seaming it, and it will be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then where is that going to sit? So on something like this, you have to have made sure that your fussy cut is in just the right position. Yep. This one is cut differently because I wanted to center the apple core. So even though he's off to one side, the apple core that he's centered, kind of wrapping around, is in the middle.
Perfect.
And then this one, so I've been pattern testing for you. This is the leader of the pack pattern. As a pattern tester, this is a slightly earlier version. Honestly, I wasn't going to re-go through it again. It got one shot at the fussy cuts.
Yeah, for sure.
And silhouette-wise and everything is very similar. There's just a couple of different construction techniques that I used on mine that you guys kind of fine-tuned a little bit when it went to like final production. But really what I'm focused on showing you is like my choice of fussy cutting. So I'm also a foundation paper piecing pattern designer. And so I designed this Polaroid block.
Which I love.
I think 3 years ago when Tula released the Everglow line, and I did an influencer project for it before the fabric came out, and I designed the Polaroid to say you were on safari in Tula's world, Pinkerville, and these are the snapshots of the animals you saw while you were there.
That's so great.
And then, so I've kind of refined it because I'm going to release it as a pattern, and I've done it so that it fitted on the pocket. So with this, I've also put the selvage from the fabric in, but you could also, my original one, I free motion embroidered like handwriting.
I love that idea.
But I really like to put the punny names that are in all of the Tula fabrics they crack me up. Yeah. So I really like to put them in. So this one is called Neck for Days. And this bag has been fussy cut kind of meticulously in all areas. So, some you maybe don't realize it's fussy cut because obviously at some point his head's someone's going to be decapitated.
Yeah,
somewhere.
but you got these guys in
But
there
I've got
perfectly.
these guys poking out of the top of the pocket.
Yeah.
And
this guy looking around the side is so cute.
So there's a lot of like thoughtful placement when I'm doing it. If you look on the top of the zipper strip, there's a little, I always make sure everything rematches when I'm putting it together, which is a bit painstaking, but, they always travel across the fabric. This one, his neck goes across.
So what I do for that is I just cut the full strip.
So I cut the full strip and that's sewing on because I'm fairly accurate when I'm putting my zip in. I don't want to say like always perfect, but that zipper width replaces what you've lost in putting it in from the fabric. So it usually will make a really nice.
Still
exactly.
As
so
a full pattern.
That's why he's sort of traveling across there.
Yeah.
Also, I am conscious, I don't want to be blowing through all my fabric, but for me, even though this one's sideways, they're kind of running down the top of the
They're
bag.
upright when you look at them.
Exactly.
There. Yeah.
And so I fussy cut this. I don't make it in the way that you guys do, where you have one whole piece of fabric that is quilted and then cut it up. But you could absolutely still be selective with it. Just makes it really, really hard to find fussy cuts.
Yes.
And then have enough fabric to then use it.
Yeah.
So I... in this case, fussy cut each element, which
is a smart idea.
It very painstaking.
Yeah, but smart.
And so a little technique I'm going to talk about later is that on this, the way that the pocket is constructed is applied. You finish the edge of the pocket and apply it onto the back. And so it has a very visible binding that I think in the pattern is instructed you would typically cut coordinating fabric for it. Well, for me, with the busyness of the fabric, I've chosen this fabric very specifically. Yes, it has lots of fussy cutting opportunities. Yes, it goes beautifully with new ByAnnie coloured zippers. Yes, it's my favourite colour combination of pink and yellow.
Yep.
It hits ticks every box. But really more importantly, it's busy. And weirdly, a busy fussy cut friendly fabric is perfect for anything where you're changing it around. And even more so, something that we talked about briefly last year is the fussy cutting ability for a busy fabric for your binding, which feels kind of wicked. I remember chopping through Parisville cameos to make my binding last year because I did a video with you and we talked about fussy cutting then. And I put a fussy cut binding onto my caddy,
which was
Catchall
insane.
Caddy. And well, it wasn't fussy cut. It actually more specifically wasn't fussy cut, but it was a very busy print and it hides everything. So even though when you look at this, you can see it's a different piece of fabric, really, it looks kind of like it flows through. And I didn't want to put, I've already put quite a lot of not jarring, but complementary, contrasting, high visibility items here. I thought I would really like this to blend in instead.
Yes.
So I think
we had enough testers who mentioned that the pattern does include instructions for if you want to cut just this binding, it tells you what size to cut in each of those. Originally, it was just one binding for everything. So we broke it up into one for this, one for the padded straps, and one for the
because I've got different bindings in here. So my lining is the Tula Pink Poppy. So you can just see that's the colour. So I've obviously bound it in that. I really think when you are trying to look really good at binding,
you
match the fabric. So don't go with the coordinate. But it depends. I decide that sometimes it will be coordinating because it really makes all the colours pop. You can complement the colours.
Right.
And then this is actually my favourite fussy cut. So this one here, he just kind of peeps out of the straps here. So I thought about the position of this. And also it really is less wasteful if you plan your fussy cuts. It just is painstaking. I spend
a fair amount of time.
Hours prepping, and I write lists of how I go about, what pieces I'm going to need, what the ingredients are, what is the final quilt cut, what is the pre-quilt cut, so that I'm getting all of my placement. Because sometimes the pattern is actually just slightly too big, and I get really upset if I've just sliced the top off, or if I've just, there's a piece missing. You can tend to lose it. I mean, this is why this one's such a particularly good one. There's a lot going on, so you've got loads to choose from. But also, your giraffe neck can become any length. I mean, his head, not so much. Yeah. But the length of it allows for you to do that. And if you lose one here, you've got a great one here. And it's just... Tula, you're a genius. We say this every time. Yep. And there are also hidden beautiful fussy cuts because I had an oopsie. I have never made a ByAnnie backpack before. This is my first one. Annie's been asking me every time we're sewing. Annie will say, "Jade, have you made this?" And I'm like, no. I've made loads of these because I have a fabric shop. My whole business, my whole life is my business. I don't have a lot of time to sew for fun, which is why doing this is my favorite thing. Pattern testing means I am sewing for fun, but it is work, but really it's fun. And so this is my first backpack, to get back to my point. And so I didn't really fully understand how these went together. And my misunderstanding was that perhaps this covered the buckles. I didn't know that they would be visible. So there is a meticulously cut set of giraffes inside, completely invisible, and
but they're there.
There may have been the odd expletive when I discovered that they were going to be on the inside. I think the pattern actually instructs you to use main on the outside, but I just wanted to bring a little bit more pink in here.
Yeah.
So I didn't use them, but yeah, these are, I feel like they're so professional. Everything about your bags, and the reason I'm so passionate about them, and there is no alternative in my opinion, is that everything has been thought about and it is finished so that it looks like you bought it and people will compliment it and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's fussy cutting, and I've kind of covered binding a little bit, but I am going to go on to talk about fussy cutting binding in a little bit more detail.
Yes.
Okay, so the final technique that I want to talk about is fussy cutting binding. So I covered a little bit of how actually you're not really fussy cutting this, but you're using a main fabric to blend your binding. This fussy cutting technique also works.
Also applies sometimes when you wouldn't think it would.
Yeah, exactly. So I've made this, I finished this. Actually, I have to confess that I had Amy in my team. I chose all the fabrics, I prepped and cut everything, and she was assembling while I was preparing the next part. But she left me with all of the fun finishing jobs. I did the binding and
it turned out so good.
A bunch of stuff. So I'm really thrilled with it. We will probably kit this at some point, but I would ordinarily, and more ByAnnie making experience, would have gone, contrast binding on everything. I think it always it gives you the ability to lift the design of the fabric. So I'm trying to make it feel a little bit more pink. So I've put this pink contrast in. There is a theme. Pink and yellow seems to happen quite a lot.
It's your favorite colors.
It is my favorite combo. This fabric, when people see this model in the shop, when people see me making with it, becomes so much more popular. It is a popular fabric, but a lot of people, when you see this on the bolt, is a little intense, but really, I just think it's really kind of chic and cute and fun, and nowhere near as kind of overpowering in this scenario, unless, as I was just telling you guys, you use a black light on it and you're afraid of scorpions.
All of these little guys are neon and they glow in the dark, and they are very scorpion shaped.
Exactly. So yeah, just be careful. That's probably the only disclaimer that I would make about it. But other than that, really beautiful. I will be talking to Tula about that. So with this one, it's not really about the fussy cutting. Like, I have been careful and clever, but it's a really clever print. It is a bias printed design on the whole. So I'll sort of demonstrate this on the fabric to kind of show you why it's really important to think about what you're using for your binding. So I've already said that on a caddy especially, I really want to be working with the main fabric on my bias binding, the one that goes around the side of my bag, because it blends. You guys might not agree with me, but I think that this becomes way more invisible. But not only that, I would
definitely agree with that.
If you're a little bit wobbly on your stitching, if you've got any fears of binding, don't be afraid of them, because these bags are so awesome that your binding is irrelevant. Get it on there. Don't worry about it. Move on.
No one is going to notice it. You're going to love using it.
You can always choose a particular fabric that will make it look better than maybe your sewing skills.
Pink.
Yeah, exactly. So if I'd put this pink on, it would look awesome. It would show every stitch and I would be tortured looking at it every now and then. However, this one, I can't really see it. It disappears. So I've chosen carefully chosen a thread color that blends with my fabric really nicely, but also that it has this, it kind of flows with the fabric. I know you said to me, why haven't I fussy cut this? You can't. I mean, if I could have, there's a couple of patches where it works, so it just happens to flow into the right color, but it doesn't really work like that.
I was only teasing you because you did. That's what you showed on here, where she matched a lady's face from here to here, and then the binding also matched. which to me is pure
but
insanity.
It was fun though. Sort of fun. I mean,
that was straight grain binding.
It was straight grain binding, and so that's why these are straight grain binding. I'm very confident in my ability to apply a straight grain really tidily. I have no problem with that. Bias when you're going through bulk and you're trying to get round a corner, and all of the many challenging elements of it, but don't be afraid of it. Just get it on and worry about it later. Annie's sewn thousands of them. That's why you're not as intimidated by it. The more you do, the better you get. We were talking about this this weekend. So with this and with binding, and so this fabric is just a really nice way to demonstrate how you could also miscut this.
Yes, because that's what surprised me. I'm not sure I would have thought of this.
So what I
would have avoided this fabric.
Yeah.
As a binding.
Well, yeah, but also I used it for the body of the bag, so it really does work, and it follows my rule of use that for your bias binding, use your main. Now, if it weren't a particularly busy one, I probably wouldn't. It depends, but predominantly if it's a visible binding, I now am in the camp, use the busy main fabric for the binding, and you'd be amazed at what you can hide.
For sure.
Anything that makes you happier with your finish is a win for me. So with that in mind, there is a right way and a wrong way to cut this fabric. I hate to say it, and it may just be your preference. If you are more interested or have a particular feeling on this print itself, in like for a color theme, maybe you just want the pink and blue ones, then you can absolutely cut in this direction. I can show it in detail in here. If you look at how my quilting, I've done
along the colorways,
diagonal along the colorways. That basically, if you cut your binding in one direction, that's what you're going to get. It doesn't vary on the color. It's just because it's on a 45-degree angle, which is the same that you would cut your bias binding, you're just getting a segment. So if you want to blow through tons of fabric and make a themed one, or you could, chop this whole piece up and use it in that way so that you joined all of the greeny ones together. You could kind of fussy cut it in that way and divide the design up.
But if you didn't do that,
but if you didn't,
you cut it this way,
and then you go, oh well, I didn't really
you'd have
want
blotches
that one.
of pink, and then a blotch of,
and immediately attached to that. So that's your joining point to down here.
Yeah,
you're going to go transition, and it just kind of. I mean, it might be the look that you're going for,
right? Which on a quilt, something big might be nice
really cool.
Going around.
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
But on something little like that, it would.
It would show the things rather than blend them. Right. And so with this particular bias print, kind of very specifically coloured fabric, there is a way to get the rainbow all the way. But there is one thing I have to tell you and confess: you do not use the ByAnnie binding method. You can't do it on this fabric. It's usually made from a square that you split in half and join together. You could just about manage it with this fabric, but it's tricky and quite wasteful. So I would recommend, if you have something like this with the colours travelling in a certain direction, there's quite a few Tula ones like that. There's loads of other designers that do something similar, like a travelling rainbow, for example. I mean,
it's a good word.
It's a weird way to describe it, but it kind of just is always kind of, it's creeping up this way. It's like in fabric design terms, it's like a half brick, and a half drop, like there's a multiple, it's very complex pattern repeat situation on there.
For sure.
And so we've got these rulers here to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about in terms of you choosing. So you could fussy cut those. A typical binding might be a 2 1/4 inch bias binding that you would use quite often to bind like a catch-all caddy or a in control or something like that. So you're cutting 2 1/4 inches. So you're just working out, you could do this, but that is very specifically one color. It's busy enough to hide your stitching, so it would still work on this particular print, but it's not rainbow. And everything should be rainbows.
For sure.
Rainbows and sparkles, Annie. Rainbows and sparkles.
I love it.
So this way round,
that is just like magic to me when you showed me that.
Well,
I'm not sure I would have thought of it.
This particular fabric is super magical because you get just a line of rainbows. If I'm desperate to fussy cut like a flange binding, that you would just see that stripe. And I think this one this way works as well. So when you're doing it, you just get the line of colours. Just think that looks really, really cool. Pretty. And it's completely transformed. It's like a bias stripe, do you see?
Yeah.
So can you see that?
So interesting.
It's like a bias stripe. Yeah, so that spot there, this section is what I want to do a fussy cut of.
Yeah,
But I think like a flange binding on the side of a quilt, so that is just
fabulous.
this little visible section that's kind of gone off there. But look how cool that is.
Yeah.
And it just transitions through every shade.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's on my list of things to play with. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make. So when you're cutting this binding, you're just lining it up, so it's 45-degree cut, but you're using a single layer of fabric and it's going to be face up. So regardless if you think you've got a print that's similar to this or you're using this one, you can't cut it back to back. You can't have a fold and think, oh, I'll do it really quick and I'll cut some more stripes, because on the opposite side, you're going to be cutting in the opposite direction. So it won't work. And then you'll find that when you're joining them together, you're getting half and half. If you did your technique, for example, when you put your triangles the wrong way around, you'd have half and half, and it would kind of transition from rainbow to a colour, and you don't really want that. So, well, maybe you do. It's not my preference, and it's not kind of illustrating the point that I'm making. So I have prepared just to really demonstrate how this works. So if we pull this guy out of the way, I did just show what that looks like. So this is the other half of my fabric that I was cutting from to make my binding. So it started out as a fat quarter. I've bound this using it. This has actually been joined because I wasn't sure how much I was going to need. Because I did not refer to the pattern. But this is basically a rainbow binding. You can really clearly see the way that this goes through. You get the full transition of colours, and then, you can use it in whichever direction you want. This is such a clever print. You can get little stars out of it, like half stars and stuff. So, that pretty much summarises how I would fussy cut a binding. Gives you a little bit more technical information without, bombarding you with measurements or anything like that. It really is.
It just basically shows that you got to pay attention.
You've got to pay attention, and if you really want to, do fussy cutting and kind of, it's a labour of love, but the dopamine hit that you get from, nailing it is very, very. It's a big high for me personally. It's kind of very satisfying. It's visually really exciting, which I think is really important when you're making something, because you'll enjoy making it more. It comes with much bigger frustrations if you do it wrong. It's devastating.
Well, and I was going to say, this is something you do when you're not tired and you haven't been sewing all day and it's 1:00 in the morning. Oh, this is a morning thing, don't you think?
This is the first thing in the morning. This is you've hung out with your sewing friend for a week and had like 5 hours sleep a night kind of situation.
And you're not talking while you're doing this. Both Jade and I had several experiences this week where we were busy talking and sewing at the same time and made really silly mistakes.
What's really fun about that is that this year you made some. Last year, having, really hung out with you for the first time, like on a longer period of time and like one-to-one, to mess up a ByAnnie pattern in the presence of Annie is pretty terrible. To watch Annie mess up a pattern of her own in your presence,
it's even more magical.
It's kind of magical because she is human. You would not believe it from the kind of things that you make, but but mainly it is, we chat a lot.
And we had a great time.
Yeah.
So Jade, I am really sorry to see you go.
I'm gonna be really
was
upset.
So much fun to have you this week. I so appreciate all the help that you gave me. We worked on a brand new pattern and I was struggling with ideas and we got it nailed and we've got extra stuff to go with it. We were very productive in between all the mistakes that we made and all the laughing that we did.
A lot of laughing.
But it was really fun to have you here. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to get all upset because I don't want to go. Oh, except I will be glad to see the
Backstreet Boys.
I'll be glad to see the Backstreet Boys, exactly. I'll be glad to not see a scorpion.
And to see the back of your eyelids for a while because you get to catch up on some sleep.
I do need to sleep.
So for me, the good news is that when I need a Jade hit, I can just go on and watch your lives. Mm-hmm. So tell us where people can find you if they want to enjoy your hijinks.
So predominantly I'm on Instagram. I do basically weekly live. They're kind of inconsistent at the moment because I have a lot of things on. I'm Lovely Jubbly Fabrics on Instagram. I go live, I talk nonsense. I show you what I'm doing in the shop, what I've been making, and that's it. And then that feeds onto, I have Facebook, so I'm also Lovely Jubbly Fabrics on there. My website is lovelyjubblyfabrics.co.uk. That is my fabric store. I specialise in Tula Pink and ByAnnie. Almost entirely. There's a little bit extra stuff there, but that's what we specialise in. But what I will say is that we only ship currently within the UK. We're figuring it out again, but right now that's where we're limited to. But that doesn't stop you from watching me be silly on lives. Doesn't stop you from getting tips and inspiration and looking at what we make. And we also, we run a ByAnnie Bag Makers Club, where you get like a subscription of bag kits. But yeah, there's lots of, even if you can't kind of join us physically in the UK or support us in that way, there's loads of ways to kind of watch and just enjoy the content.
And there are so many fun people in that group. So just to be part of that community, my bestie Beth is in there. I've never met Beth, but I'm looking forward to doing that. But I really enjoy she always tells people to read the patterns. So
she does. We have, Beth is one of the members of our Loves group, say the Lovely Jubbly Loves. And that is the Lovely Jubbly League of Very Extraordinary Sewists. And they are my kind of group. They have described it as a cult. Because I am very able to persuade people to part with their money. And so I can see where that might come from. But it is a really fun one where it's predominantly fueled by laughter. And
that's so much fun. And we all need that.
And sewing. And
I enjoyed that this week.
Frequent mistakes. But that's kind of part of the fun of it. And yeah, belly laughing all the time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys all. And we will see you again another time.